All right, so in this video, what I'm going to talk to you about is I'm going to piggyback on what I did in the last one, which was talking about, this is a new year, you want to make changes with a lot of different things. And a good place to start is to assess where you at and where do you want to go and what's something you could try. And the example I gave was that last year, I really wanted to try to do something different with assessment in my statistics classes. I wanted to have something that was more equitable. I wanted something that was more aligned with the workforce. I wanted students to get real skills that would serve them well in future classes, but also in their work life and just in their life in general. And really my ultimate goal was I want students to be able to use the statistics that we are learning. I always focus on that. That's always my goal. But I looked at the situation and I was like, I don't know that all my assessment, definitely there's all kinds of elements to a class to get to these goals, instruction, and what topics you're going to talk about, the order, technology, all of it. I'm not getting into all of that. Let's keep it simple and just say one place that I knew where I felt like I wasn't reaching the goal that I wanted in them being able to use all the content that we were working on, or a vast majority of it, was how I was assessing. I was assessing in a way that was super convenient for me. Be the first one to admit it. I was doing multiple choice tests, and I did 20 years of free response tests. And at a certain point, I found a lot of really good multiple choice questions, and I learned how to write better multiple choice questions. And I think with just a large grading load, I just got to the point where I was just burnt out on grading. And so I went what was easier for me. And it was easier for me, and it was great for me for a long time. But I did get to the point where I'm like, I don't know that I'm achieving the goals that I want. And it wasn't like my students did poorly on them. The students did fine in that kind of realm where there's plenty of really challenging questions. But it's still, can you solve this problem? Can you identify this type? Different computations and tests and whatnot. And although that you can get into some ideas of theory and some more conceptual ideas, I'm not going to lie to you and say that, I never lie to you guys. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not going to say all my test questions were conceptual. They weren't. But with the pandemic and the different changes that have come in the last couple of years, I really have, and just have evolved in my own teaching, my perspective on math. I wanted to do more and more with authenticity and doing things that were equity focused. So what was the outcome of that? I said, well, I'm going to try a project, and I'm not going to do it where it's all at once, because again, first off, that sets everybody up for a bad experience. I think it's easier to do that. We'll just wait and, we'll start the project at the very end of the course and put it all together. But the students have multiple classes, and they have your class and, multiple other things. And they're trying to get all of these things done into the semester, May, and it doesn't matter if it's May, August, or December. It's going to be busy. So one of the things I wanted for both outcomes and for grading and just for feasibility is I wanted to space this out. And by the way, I did not come up with all of this. I was working on a webinar back in August of last year with Professor Kelly Spoon in San Diego. And we did a webinar for Amatic about using authentic assessments in statistics. And I shared lots of ways that I bring in authenticity, but one of them was not a project. It had been in years past. She really liked using a project. And so I listened to it. I learned a lot from that. And then I decided to implement it, adjust it for what I needed for my course, but I decided to implement it. And while there were hiccups, without question, it was the best stats class I think I've ever taught in terms of outcomes. Also, the class was great. They were lovely. They were good students. And we struggled with quarantines and attendance, as is the case in COVID, as is the case before COVID, but COVID only exacerbates that. But they were a good class, but that's not what made it great. What made it great was the conversations that they had with their groups and with me. We're talking about real data and how do we apply all these ideas that we're learning. And I let them have a lot of say over what they were doing. And of course, that reduces cheating because there was nothing for them to go online anywhere and try to like find a copy of this project. So much of it had original choice to it. We spaced it out over time. But the biggest thing that I want you to take away from this is something that was hard. It was hard for me because it was the time element involved. Because again, even though I'm not teaching 5 classes a semester, I run my business full time, and there is a lot that goes on with that, plus having a family and whatnot, just all the things that go on in life. So the idea of adding on a new layer of grading, which is what I did, which was the idea of regular feedback with students, regularly having them do a small submission, looking through it, sending it back to them, and telling them what they needed to work on. And we worked more towards this whole, I give you feedback, you adjust. I give you feedback, we adjust, like you do in real life. I think like when I write textbooks, it's not like we just turn in, my co-author and I, we don't just turn in the whole manuscript or the whole book on one day and say, ta-da. We don't do that. We have deadlines, we get feedback, we have revisions, we have rounds. I mean, it's a process. And I decided to use that in my class with this project. And it did actually work really well. The final projects were great. They took my advice on different things. They were all at different levels. It wasn't like everybody aced everything, but they were really good and they had made progress. And that was what I was going for. I wanted to see them make progress. So that was what was exciting. But I'm going to share with you an emotion that happened regularly throughout this whole process of trying something new. And this is the case no matter what you're doing, assessment, you're trying to improve something with your health, you're trying to improve something with a friendship, whatever, or you're doing something with your math program. Discomfort is going to come along for the ride. And that is just the way it's going to be. And we have to accept that. And I'm telling you and myself as much as anyone, because there's a variety of different things I'm making changes in right now. And discomfort is part of it. You are not going to be comfortable with everything that's happening. You're not going to necessarily believe everything's going to come together. Things are going to take longer, or things aren't going to go in the time order you expected. There's going to be hiccups, is the point. There's going to be things that test your patience and your resolve. But that is what is required to make real change. So in my case, there were lots of places where I'm like, oh, this is taking more time than I have. And oh, I wish would have done this earlier on. This would have made it easier. And, there was lots of places where I was like, oh, the next time, I'll be doing this different. So that was, there was frustrations and aggravation. There was discomfort. Again, with any change you make, that is going to be par for the course. The thing I suggest and what I have tried to tell myself is just keep going, or as Dory used to say, just keep swimming, but just keep going. That discomfort is part of it. And it doesn't matter what level of change you're trying to make in any facet of your life. This is what happens. You're going to pick something, you're going to try something, and really try to do something that's going to make a difference. It's not always going to feel good, but the results can be worth it. So that is my encouragement for you for this new month of the year, new year, new chance to make some changes and make some progress in a variety of different things, including your math program. I'll see you next time.